and welcome to another season of the Molten Truth. This is season 2, where we're taking on another note, as I previously said in the first episode. This is episode 3 we're recording. So, this is a fun season where we're taking a step further to talk to musicians. Up until now, we've spoken mainly with business owners, with writers, with psychologists, and people from all walks of life, and now we're broadening our horizons. As you know, if you've looked at my Facebook page, if you've looked at my website, you know that I am a great fan of music. So talking to musicians for me is exciting. It's a highlight. So I am very pleased to introduce to you to our current guest, another person referred to us by Caden Gordon, KC Armstrong. It's so nice to have you with us, and I
Hi,
can't wait
Zoe.
for you to share your story with our audience. I'll let you have
Oh,
the
thank
floor.
you. Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So I was asking you just kind of before we got started, just about your background, about how you got started into music, and you really surprised me by how young you were when you got started. So I'll let you
Well, I
take
think
the floor.
you'll find out with most musicians, they start taking lessons early, and if they've got the urge, they start working together with other musicians and networking and figuring it all out early. We already had our guitars and amplifiers purchased, and we're together rehearsing at age 10, is what you're referring to.
Yes, and for me, that's just amazing, amazing that to at that age, and it makes me wonder: is that because there's maybe some music in your family that perhaps your parents were musically inclined and therefore inclined to help you purchase that equipment, or how did that happen that came together at such an early age?
Well, it came partly from me working a paper route and earning some of my own money, and then my dad matching it. My dad was incredibly supportive when it came to my rock journey because he was a fan of the Beatles just like I was. In fact, it was because of him that I became a fan of the Beatles. I'm sure he let me stay up late to watch them on the Ed Sullivan Show, and that was really something. I was pretty young, but he encouraged my musical journey. And then my mother, she was the one that insisted on piano lessons. So I had to actually, she was the one that actually played a bit of piano and sang. My dad wasn't very musically gifted at all.
But
Yeah.
how great that you had that in that background. I have to admit, I'm envious of you in that. I spent actually probably a good 40 years of my life envying my sister, who's 6 years older than me, because I thought all these years, up until this summer, that she had been offered the chance to learn the piano by my grandmother and my aunt, who both played the piano. And I always wanted to learn. And I thought my sister had been given that opportunity, and then they decided she wasn't good at it, and then they never offered it to me or anyone else. Turns out they never offered it to any one of us, including my sister.
Oh, really?
So maybe had I spoken up and said, Grandma, I would like to learn the piano, maybe my life would have turned out differently. But all these years, a good 45 years, I thought they'd only offered it to my sister and didn't offer it to the rest of us.
Well, at the start, I didn't like my piano lessons.
Mm.
I was it was all conservatory, which is classical music, and the teacher I had was an old German lady, and she was very stuck on just classical music, and that's it. So on the side, I started teaching myself how to play guitar, bass, and all the other instruments.
Yeah.
And I kind of dropped piano at around 14, and I didn't pick it back up and even play it or try it until I was in my mid 30s. When all
Wow.
of a sudden I realized this could be very valuable on stage, so I started incorporating it into the stage show. And I can tell you when that happened. Do you remember the song "Amazed" by Lone Star?
Yes. Yes, I do.
That was the biggest song of the year, and we all wanted to play it. And there's a very important piano part in that song. So I brought a piano out and started using that, and pretty soon it overtook everything. If you listen to my live stuff now, I play about 80-90% keyboards live now.
Oh,
Bass
really?
guitar once in a while, yeah.
But it took that long. It took Lone Star's song
Yes.
"Amazed" for you
Yeah.
to have that. And
To bring
no
it back.
influence from Billy Joel or any of the other great piano players in
No,
between.
no. Go figure.
Well, sometimes things just hit us when they hit us, and for
That's
you,
true.
it was amazed, and
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. We
No.
we find inspiration in places that for one person it may not click, and for another person it's just like a total epiphany. That's
Oh
that's the
yeah.
way inspiration works.
Well, when you're looking backwards at your life, you can easily see where one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and you get a real perspective on decisions you've made and chance things like that. All of a sudden they change your life direction without you even realizing it at the time you make those decisions.
So
It's,
true.
yeah.
So true. I love the idea too. I've always loved the idea of kind of looking at inspiration from whether it's, music or art or people's writing, almost like the rain cycle. Just it's like one thing inspires another and inspires another. It's just it comes full cycle, and I just love that how they all feed off each other. It's just like its own ecology, and I love the
Hmm.
way that works.
Well, I'm not sure I'm catching what you're driving at there as far as writing music, but I do write music and I have a lot of theories on how that works, but I think it's still mysterious. Is there still the X factor? Where does it come from?
Yeah. You so like when you're thinking of songs and lyrics, because I would guess you must also write lyrics.
I start with the lyrics. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, what inspires you to write your lyrics? Because in my mind, that's what I'm thinking of. It's like when I look
Right.
at experiences in life or things I read or you know that's what I'm thinking of. But what are
You
you thinking of?
you can't force it. You cannot force it. You can say, "Boy, I'd like to write a song today. I sure could use a new song." And you can sit down there for a year and a half straight and sit down every morning and nothing comes out. Or like I did, other days you can write 3 songs in one day.
True.
Yeah, and you
So
don't. There's no rhyme or reason. It just comes when it comes.
sure. Well, like seeding the clouds. They tried to seed the clouds to get rain, but that's never really yielded anything. And that's what I think of. I think of like the rain cycles and the weather cycles. You know, they
You must have been
work.
listening. You must have been listening to my song, "Waiting for the Rain to Fall."
Or maybe I need to.
Well, you should. Yeah, actually lyrically, that's one of my better efforts.
Which reminds me, I always try to remember to ask this, and I usually try to ask this before I start recording. Do you have a website so that our guests can look you up and find your music and find out more about you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a website?
Sure do. www.kcarmstrong444.com.
So KCArmstrong444.com. Good
Correct.
to know. So
Yeah.
I'll make it a point to also include that when I do on our Facebook page and when I set up the broadcast on Spotify. But I think it's very important that our listeners have that opportunity to look it up because if they're anything like me, I'm one who even when I'm watching TV or if I'm listening to something, I've also got my my device or my laptop and I'm looking things up while I'm
Oh, yeah.
listening. Multiple, things going because
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that's just the age we live in these
It
days.
is. Information and more information. If you're going to try the Google route, please put my hometown of Brantford with my name because there's 3 or 4 KC Armstrongs. And I had a friend from New Zealand who looked my name up and said, "Hey, I didn't know you were an actor. I didn't know you worked for Howard Stern. I didn't know you were a bass singer in a Christian band. And I didn't know you were a photographer." And I said, "I'm not." Those are the other KC Armstrongs. So you got to, if you're Googling me, put KC Armstrong Brantford and then all my stuff.
Well, that's a very good information for our audience as well as for me. And yeah, I can see how that can happen. In fact, when I very first had launched my podcast, um, one of the media consultants who was sending writers my way actually sent me this really interesting fellow. I never did get to actually interview him. We never got to connect his second time. Um, but his name came up, and I was like, okay, well, this is an interesting choice. It still fell into the line of people I would interview because he had a book out, but it was just kind of like a stretch for what I was looking for. but it was one of those things where similar name,
Hmm.
similar type of work, but just a little off the beaten path compared to what I had been looking for. But I would have interviewed either one of those guys. They
Yeah,
would have either one would have been a great interview.
I had I had changed schools when I was in grade 12, and I went to a new school. And I went to my first history class, and the teacher writes on the board, "My name is Ken Armstrong." He said, "I'm going to point to you, and I want you to tell me your names." And I'm the very first person he points to. I said, "Ken Armstrong." And he almost sent me down to the
Yeah,
almost sent
you're
me
being
down
smart,
the,
Alex. Oh
he
boy.
thought I was being what a wise guy. We don't need your nonsense. But I got to know him. He was a really good teacher. And then for years after that, I got his mail. I'd have to send it back to him. We lived in the same town.
Oh, but that makes a great story.
Yeah. Well, then there's another one. I told you there's a photographer with KC Armstrong. I needed some promo shots, so I called him up to book him to do some promo shots, and he thought I was goofing around at first too. But we got talking, and it turns out his name is Ken as well,
Oh boy.
but his middle name's different.
Well, at least there's some difference.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
barely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where, so my parents gave me a very unusual first name, and I spent all my life battling that first name.
I think
So much
Zoe's a great
so,
name.
well, that's my pen name. So this is the name I use professionally, but it's not the name my parents put on my birth certificate.
Okay.
So I spent a good 50 years battling this very unusual name my parents gave me, and it frustrated me to no end. And I tried to change it once in my early 20s, and I was not successful. I wound up still going by this unusual name that was a source of frustration. But the one thing I couldn't complain about was that I wasn't running into people with that same name. In my entire life, I've only met 3 other people with that name. So I didn't have the complication that you did with, or the, hey, are you being a smart aleck? Because the likelihood of finding another person with that name. But getting people who could pronounce that name or recognize what that name was, that was my challenge. So,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes it's good to have a common name, but the trade off is, it's like, you remember the Dr. Seuss book about the the boys? All of them were named Dave.
You're not talking about Bartholomew Wiggins, are you? That must be a
Is
different
that
one.
the one who wrote the book about all the boys named Dave?
No,
I would.
Bartholomew Wiggins is a Dr. Seuss book. I thought maybe that's what you, but I don't
Oh
know.
no,
I guess I
no.
must not know the one you're referring to.
Yeah, and maybe I'm blanking out who the actual. I could swear it's a Dr. Seuss book, but the one thing I remember strongly was that all the boys were named Dave. Like, it was just that thing. I used to. It stuck with me because I had a father named Dave, I had a brother named Dave, I had an uncle Dave, so that stuck. So all these boys named Dave really resonated with me. But common names versus unusual names, is there a better or worse? I guess we all have to be the judge of that.
I think as you get older and more comfortable in your own skin, probably the second. Maybe when you're going to school and you want to fit in and you don't want to stand out like a sore thumb, probably the first.
There could be that. And maybe also in the type of work you do. There are certain types of work where having an unusual name could be a benefit.
Hmm.
Other types of work, perhaps if you're on the phone, as I was, especially in my early 20s, where if they don't understand your name and you want them to understand your name, that is a source of frustration.
Hmm.
But if you don't want them to understand your name and you want to get away with something, well, then maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It comes down to perspective. But Zoe, that's one of the reasons I chose Zoe as my pen name. It's simple enough, but also unique enough.
It's memorable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually had some help choosing it. I actually sat down at the kitchen table with my sister, and we discussed, names that would fit with the personality, and felt like family still, and we came up with Zoe together. So we
Very
kept
good.
it in the family. But that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about music.
Right.
So You were telling me that you write a variety of songs.
Oh, yeah.
Um, you mentioned one name of your song a moment ago, and I think I've something about the weather, something about the rain.
Waiting for the rain to fall.
Waiting for the rain to fall. I'm actually gonna write that down because I'm gonna make it a point to go listen to that now. So waiting for the rain to fall. But
Hmm.
if you were gonna recommend a song to our listeners, like what is an absolutely must listen to KC Armstrong song?
Well, my current one is my most popular so far, and that's one of my stronger efforts so far. That's called When You're Gone.
Okay.
According to Apple Music, my radio play's gone up 96% since I released that one. On the other hand, I've got a Christmas song coming out in 1 month's time that's really cute too, and you're going to love that one. It's called I Hate That Sweater.
Well, I like the title anyway.
Oh, it's got a cute video. It really does. Chock full of ugly sweaters and people having a fun time with them. Cute video.
Yeah.
You're going to love it.
Oh boy. Yeah.
But
I'm
yeah,
thinking
so
about
either
that
one of
song with
those,
ugly sweaters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I got another album coming out. I've actually recorded, this is weird. I recorded 3 albums simultaneously. And I've released the first one last year. I'm releasing this one. It won't be until just January, as it turns out, which is why I put a single from the second album out early just to keep my name into it while I'm waiting to finish the production on the second one. Third one's already recorded and ready to go too, so it should be out the next year as well. And that'll be it for me. And there's the three albums worth of material that I wrote, and I think it's all pretty strong. And I balanced it out. So if you like the first album, you're probably going to like the second and third as well.
That's great. So you were very productive, even though inspiration's elusive at times.
I've been stockpiling for my whole life. Now you got to understand what's happened here. I started writing on my first song on my 14th birthday, which is a long time ago now. I was writing all through my teens and 20s and 30s, and then I sort of hit a dry spell, and I started writing again in my 50s. And I didn't get recording mostly hardly at all because I didn't have the finances and I was too busy doing a day job. It wasn't until I retired from my day job, I took early retirement and I decided to put the album out. So that was last year, and that's this is the result of it. And it's done quite well. It's on radio all over the world, like literally all over the world. South Africa, and I've all over Europe, Bahamas, Australia, New Zealand, all over the States and Canada, some places in South America. Yeah.
That's cool. So then, what are your plans? I mean, is it just for download only, or do you plan to do any kind of touring? What are your plans?
Well, I'm going to try to get a band up and running in time for next summer season, where the outdoor festivals. I'm not overly concerned with that at this point in time. You got to understand, this is a hobby, and I'm enjoying myself immensely just doing it as I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with that.
I've
Doing it
sat here,
purely for the love.
yeah, I've sat here my whole life thinking, I think I've got songs good enough for the radio, but I'll never find out. And then all of a sudden, what happened was a year before I retired, I'm on my bus one morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I was driving a wheelchair trans, so I was up early waiting for my first people and drinking a tea, and I had the radio on. I was bored, and all of a sudden, I had the local station on, the country station, and I almost fell off my seat when one of my songs came on because
Wow.
I didn't even know they had a copy, and apparently they'd had one for 30 years and been playing it the whole time, and I had no idea.
Well, how did they get a copy? Do you
I
know?
had sold it to them in the local bar when I used to play there. One of the guys had come in and bought one of my CDs off stage, and he had been playing it, just quietly playing it for 30 years. So I thought, of okay, I like that. That's really nice to hear yourself on the radio. Let's do more of that. So I scrambled and got it all together very quickly after that because they were all recorded anyways. All I had to do was mix them and put them out, and I did.
That is amazing. And what a huge compliment that 30 years later that someone was still playing a record that they bought that you had no idea. I mean, that's a huge compliment to you.
Oh, it is, and I'm going to tell you the thought process that I was going through as this was occurring. First was, I know that song. And then it was, I used to sing that song back in the 80s thinking it was a cover tune. Still hadn't quite
Right.
placed it yet because honestly, I hadn't heard the song because I recorded that back in the 80s.
Right.
Right? So, and then all of a sudden I realized that's me. That was like the third thought. And then it was,
That's
wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So now, back when you recorded that original song back then, was it just you by yourself, or was that including some friends like the band? I mean,
Hmm.
how was
Yeah, it
that?
was. I had quite a good lineup of people. The album itself wasn't up to the standards that I would like it to be, and I spent an awful lot of money doing it, which is one reason why it's taken so long to recoup it. Back then, I think I spent about $30,000 putting that out. And that doesn't sound like much, but if you translate it into
Sounds like a
today's
lot to
dollars, that's
me.
about $90,000,
Yes, I
which
mean,
took
even
it.
30,000 sounds like a lot to me. 90,000 sounds astronomical.
Well, translated into today's dollars, that's what it would be,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it set me back years doing that, and it was good, and there's parts of it were good, but having my own ability to do it myself, like I produce all my own stuff, I have my own recording studio,
yeah.
and now I do, and it just allows me the time to nitpick and get things exactly where I want them before I release them.
Well, and at least now we have, I mean, look at how much technology has grown since then. I mean, in the 80s compared to now, you have so many better tools to work with to really get the quality you want. I would think that that would be the case.
When we mixed the first album, they didn't even have automated mixing. So we were doing it old school, like very, very old school, with a reel to reel tape, like real tape,
Yep.
and add a mixing board. And there was three of us in the mixing console, and so that's six hands, and we'd all have duties as the song's progressing. One would turn the reverb up slightly in this spot, or turn the singing up here or down here, turn the bass up here, down here, change things constantly as the song's running. And
Right.
if it was all in real time, if you messed it up, you had to do it again. You had to start back from the start. And it wasn't until you did a complete run through that was successful that you were done mixing the song.
Yeah.
And that's at $40 an hour. You got the clock ticking, so it's quite tense. Nowadays, it's all computerized, so you just sit there and you can adjust every little minute detail on your own completely.
Yeah.
So much different.
True. I guess the only downside, again, depending on your point of view,
Hmm.
I mean, technology is a beautiful thing, but sometimes we lose the character of things in our quest for the perfection of it. You know, one of my greatest pleasures back when I used to drive around Texas, because I used to live in Texas when I was in my teens and early 20s, but driving around with my Monkeys CD in the CD player, and there was that small imperfection in the recording studio right before they started playing one of the songs where Davey, lost track of which song they were about to do, and they had just said, okay, it's song like 7B or 7A, and he's like, okay, what song are we doing? They're like 7A. Okay, guys, chill. Kind of a response from him right before the song gets started, and I love that just that extra bit of character to it. And it's, if we had had the technology we have now, unless they intentionally did that, we wouldn't have it.
Do you know the song Roxanne by the Police?
I do.
Okay. Next time you're listening to that, listen at the very start of the song.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to hear right in the first time through the progression, it sounds like somebody hitting this really wonky chord on a piano,
Okay.
and then you'll hear a laughter, and then the song starts.
Okay. I'll go
What
back and
that
listen
is,
to
they
that.
left that in. What that is was Sting actually backed into the piano and sat on it, and then he laughed, and that's what they left in.
Great.
There's
You know,
another thing there's another piece of synergy involving them as well, on the same album, and it was a song called "The Bed's Too Big Without You," and it's a kind of a very minor key, sad song. And they were recording that in Italy apparently, and they had some sort of a leakage coming through because of bad shielding in the studio, and they picked up a radio signal, an FM radio, and it was a guy singing opera, and it just drifts in for a second, and it's in the right key, and it just sounds intentional, but it's not. And it's such a cool moment. They left it in.
Yeah, see, I love things like that when that happens. It's kind of like the musical equivalent of, when something happens when you've got a coin that's has been pressed wrong or something, where it's more valuable because of that small mistake. I love stuff like that.
Well, they say that Oriental rugs, when they're making those,
Hmm.
before they were machine made in mass, but when they're actually hand weaving them, they always weave one small imperfection.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that's a religious reason for that, if I understand correctly.
I can see where they would choose to do that. I can see why they would choose to do that for a religious purpose. But yeah, I love that though in the music world, just that little bit of whoops, but hey, this is fun, so let's leave it. I love
Oh
that.
yeah, well, there's lots of those in my music. Now, I have a really good crew of people, some pretty in Canada notoriety. You know, the people they've worked with. I have the drummer from a band called Doug and the Slugs. You probably don't know them. They
I
were
don't.
huge here in the '80s. They were top 40 constantly in the '80s, like big band. And then there's a band called Blue Rodeo. I don't know if you know them.
I can't say that
They're
I do.
they're award winners, platinum artists here, just like Doug and the Slugs, and that's the
Okay.
keyboard player in my band's one of them. Just yeah, some really good players. And I don't know if you know Ronnie Hawkins.
Now I've heard that name, but I don't know that I know the name of his music.
Well, he knows some pretty big people. He's always rubbed elbows with the big people. He never quite made it himself, but people that he was hanging around with always did. Like the band called the Band up on Cripple Creek and the
Yes,
Weight
I know
and
the
all that.
song.
Okay, well that was his backup band.
Oh, okay.
Okay, um, he used to have John Lennon, Yoko Ono, and George Harrison stay at his ranch. That's friends that
Oh,
were close friends. And then the biggest one, of course, was that he got to play the Clinton inauguration because he's very close friends with Bill Clinton.
okay.
And he's also really close friends with the guy that owns Walmart, like
Okay.
all the Walmarts, not just the one. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so we played in his band, Ronnie Hawkins, the guitar player, and I. So
Okay.
we had our moments in the sun too.
Very cool. Yeah, it's it's a pity that we don't see as much crossover between the countries. At least we get some, but
Hmm.
there isn't as much crossover as I would wish. You know, and I guess that's maybe out of necessity. I don't know.
It's
You
partly
know.
because of we have a protectionist view here where we have to have. I think it's 30% content that's Canadian here now. It used to be 50 back in the 60s. They were really into it. Every second song had to be Canadian. So we had a different set of people. We got all your biggest hits, but your lower 50% was replaced by Canadians for here. Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be so cool. This is maybe where Europe has it good from the perspective of they have so many countries. They have Eurovision, so they have all these countries that compete, and here's our songs and here's our chance to show off a little bit. So they get to see on a broader scale for that reason at minimum. It's too bad we don't have something like that on this side of the globe, between Canada and USA and maybe just Central America or something. It would just be cool to have something like that on this side.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, it's
wishful thinking.
becoming. It's not so much with the recording world, like the big record companies and everything, but when it comes to independence, which is what I am, that's becoming a movement. It really is, and it's truly international. Like like right now, I've a radio station in London's playing me, and they got me as number 6 or 7, I guess, this week on their top 40.
That's very cool. You know, you remind me of a question I should have asked, 2 or 3 interviews ago, because my very first interview with Kaden Gordon should have been the first time I asked this question, and it's certainly my first interview this season. I didn't even know there was such a thing as an indie chart, so that was new to me when I first spoke with I think it was Olivieri. Was it Wayne Olivieri? He was the one who told me about there being an indie chart. So that was new for me. I'm like, oh, okay. So if a person like me who wasn't previously aware that there was indie stations, where would they find these indie stations? I'm guessing it would be on the internet. They're not going to be on the regular radio stations, but can you give us an example of one or two stations where we would find indie artists?
Okay, well, Cashbox Radio in Toronto is a good one. Just started playing indie artists, and they've been fantastic. Like they played me, I think, 5 or 6 times today. Some days up to 11 or 12 times a day, and they're playing like a variety of independent artists. Now it's not just independent; they also play the hits and the moldy oldie hits from the '80s, '90s, and '70s. But yeah, they're everywhere. Like online stations in every town. Uh, Try online radio box, online radio box. Yeah, just try that because that's usually it's one of many that have multiple stations, and then you just put in the kind of genre you're looking for, and then you can find all these different stations coming from.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make that a point to research that because, you know,
And since you brought it up, I'm going to do a shameless plug here.
you'll go for it.
Okay, my last single made it up to number 8 in Canada on the independent charts. Okay, and it did real well, and it peaked out at number 8. They base that on requests. Write in. You can write in once a week to do that. Now I have one that's climbing the charts again right now, and that's the one I was just telling you about. When You're Gone. It's been 7 weeks on the charts, and it's gotten from 250 all the way up to 83 this week. And I could use everybody's help. It's very simple.
Okay.
All you have to do is just take an email, a blank email, and you put it addressed to CICC. That's Canadian Independent Country Countdown. So CICC Weekly Poll at Outlook.com. And you write KC Armstrong When You're Gone in the subject line. And that's a vote. And you can
CICC Weekly Poll, POLL, at
Yep.
Outlook.com.
Yep.
KC Armstrong When You're
When
Gone.
You're Gone. Yeah.
Okay.
And there is a time thing. That's anywhere from Friday afternoon Eastern Standard Time at 5 o'clock, which would be 4 o'clock for you guys, I think. Anywhere from Friday afternoon until Saturday midnight. So that's once a week they allow those votes, and you can only do it once. But yeah, the help would be greatly appreciated because I'm going to try to get top number 8 this time around. But they only allow you on the countdown for 14 weeks. And I'm already halfway there, so
Ooh, okay.
I gotta step it up if I want to get to number.
I'm gonna do my best to get your broadcast on there as quickly as I can, but right now we're booked out to November, so
Oh, it'll be still going in November.
We'll get you as quickly as we can.
Well, yeah, that'll be when it gets important, actually.
Okay,
Because,
good.
yeah,
So,
because it's going to be on
pay
7 more
attention.
weeks. Yes,
So
that'd be
be
great.
sure to do this for KC. Listen to his song, and then feel free to send that email to CICC Weekly Poll at Outlook.com in the subject line KC Armstrong When You're Gone. All right. There we go. We've emphasized that. So
Okay, we're taking care of business. Let's have fun.
That's right. So as we're coming close to the end here, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. As I had forewarned Casey before we got started with the recording, in our first season, we interviewed a variety of people, everyone from business owners to people who've written books to, oh goodness, a variety of people. One of them happened to be a makeup artist who works on people in the movies, such as Hidden Figures and other TV shows, had been for the last 30 years. So she left a random question. She specifically asked me to wait until I had a man on the broadcast. She wanted me to reserve this for the next time I had a gentleman online. So Tag, you're it.
Okay.
You are our guy who gets her question from this makeup artist. And her question, if I can find it here, tucked it away. So if I can find it, haha, here it is. And I can always give you a backup question because this may not be in your wheelhouse. But she wanted me to ask you, how important is filling in your brows?
Not very. Not. I'm blessed with very thick brows. I pluck them more than I fill them in, or I trim them.
And that is an advantage. Not everyone has that. Um, for people who don't, and this is where she was coming from, or if they're very gray, it was about filling it in just to frame the face. And so that was her point that she was making, because it really anchors the face. So, but yeah, she wanted me to
I
ask a
suppose.
man that, because men don't typically have that knowledge. And
Listen,
a
at
lot of
my
times
age,
men
I'm
don't
glad
need
to
that
have my own
knowledge.
hair. At my age, I'm glad to have my own hair.
I've got two brothers two brothers who wish they had their own hair, and one brother who, like you, has his own hair and would be saying the same thing. But yeah, thank you for being a good sport with that question. I knew that was going to be
No
one of
problem.
those questions that's like, yeah, that's an interesting one. I had another person who was like, would you ever dye your hair blue? I'm like, okay, well, we'll ask that question, sure. But that's the whole point of a random question. It's about the fun factor.
Okay, well, I got one for you then.
I'm
I have a
ready.
random
What's
question
your
for you.
yeah?
Okay, you're in a shipwreck. You're going to be stranded on a desert island, and you've only packed one CD. You're going to listen to it for the next 30 years until you're rescued. Which CD would you have packed?
And listen for next 30 years.
One album.
Who would you listen to? Now, are you asking this to the next guest, or are you asking me specifically?
Well, I'd love to hear your answer, but I was thinking the next guest.
We'll ask the
And they're
next
probably
guest.
not going to be, yeah, and they might not be a musician, but that's still everybody has a favorite album, right?
I would think so. If you, yeah, if you have a pulse, then you probably like music.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably a safe bet. I think if I was going to have something for 30 years and only one CD, it would probably be something with Billy Joel. He has always been my very first love when it comes to music. And off the top of my head, I would say his River of Dreams album. I just really,
Yeah,
really love that particular album.
you're going to like my music then because that's very heavy piano oriented.
Yeah. I would check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah, you should. They got a really good piano player.
Very cool. Well, now that I've met you and heard a little bit of your story, I will definitely make it a point to check it out. Um,
Good.
but,
Don't forget
so
to check out I Hate That Sweater.
right, the sweater. Yep. Well, and this is the time for people to have that in their heads too. Um,
Mm,
did you have any additional thoughts you wanted to share with our audience before we bring our broadcast to an end?
I can't think of anything. I hope everybody's happy and healthy moving into the holiday season coming up. And I guess we're going to have our Thanksgiving in a week or 2 years, isn't for a while. But we're getting all geared up for that. And then Christmas shopping, Halloween. It just all becomes a whirlwind pretty quickly, doesn't it?
It does. It all kind of meshes together, and it seems like it starts earlier and earlier every year. I just hunker down and just try to survive until it all is over. It's exhausting. So
It is.
I just want to just hide away and wait for it all to pass.
Mm.
But that's me. But all right. Well, I really appreciate you coming, and I'll catch you offline in just a moment after we stop the video, and I'll give you some additional details. So thank you for coming, and we're going to stop the video here.